murder case. Those include search warrant applications and some receipts from those search warrants.
But they do paint a picture of how this investigation unfolded over time.
In November 2022, a 911 call came in from a student at the University of Idaho, reporting an unconscious individual. But when the police arrived at an off-campus house near the university, they found the door open and a scene they would never forget. In the house, 4 students had been murdered by stabbing, setting up an event that would shock the small town of Moscow and the victims' families. Although Bryan Kohberger has been arrested, nothing has been proven in court yet, with many questions remaining on the minds of investigators. The first question is, why did Bryan Kohberger do it? Welcome back to Crime Mystic, where we cover solved, unsolved, and mysterious cases from around the globe. Today, we're looking at the heartbreaking case of 4 students at the University of Idaho who were brutally murdered with no apparent motive. Before we go deeper, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, get notified whenever we have a new case, and like this video. Now, let's dive into the horrid case of the Moscow murders, the discovery of a gruesome crime. On November 13th, 2022, the small town of Moscow, and eventually the entire country, was shaken by the discovery of 4 college students who were stabbed to death and murdered in their beds, where they should have felt the safest. Another roommate had called the police, saying an unconscious individual was in their off-campus house, but upon getting to the house, what the police found was 4 college students: Kaylee Goncalves, 21, Ethan Chapin, 20, Madison Mogan, 21, and Zaina Kernodle, 20, dead. The autopsies revealed that the 4 students were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep when the attack happened. Some of them had defensive wounds, but there were no signs of sexual assault. The 4 friends had been out until 2 in the morning, and it was discovered that Zaina Kernodle was on her phone around 4 a.m. on TikTok and DoorDash. One of the surviving roommates also revealed that they had heard whimpering from another room. Her statement was corroborated by a security camera about 50 feet away from the house, which picked up distorted audio. It sounded like a whimper, followed by a loud thud and dog barking. Who were the victims of the Moscow murders? The victims of the Moscow murders were Zaina Kernodle, Kaylee Goncalves, and Madison Mogan, who lived off campus with 2 other roommates. The 4th victim was Ethan Chapin, Kernodle's boyfriend, who had slept over that night. They were as close as family, and even the night before the attack, they spent time together. Chapin and Kernodle went to a party together, while Mogan and Goncalves went to a bar downtown and ate at a food truck around 1:45 a.m. that morning. Ethan Chapin was a triplet and was known for being a jack of many trades when it came to sports. He played basketball, spikeball, and volleyball. He was the comedian of his family and a lover of country music. Ethan was so close to his siblings that they went to the same school together. And his mother said in an interview, if everybody were like Ethan Chapin in this world, it would be a better place. Madison Mogan has been described as being cute, always smiling, dancing and laughing, and wearing pink. Her family described her as inquisitive and a hardcore Steelers fan. She worked in the same place as Zaina Kernodle, and the 2 were as close as sisters. She also grew up with Kaylee Goncalves, best friends from the 6th grade. She loved to travel, and she was majoring in marketing. Zaina Kernodle has been described as a loving sister and a light to many. She was able to lift a room with her positivity. Originally from Avondale, Arizona, she moved to Idaho with her family. She played volleyball, track, and soccer in high school, and majored in marketing at the university. Her obituary said that she loved electronic dance music and going on trips with her family. Kaylee Goncalves was the middle child of 5 siblings, always competitive with her older brother while looking out for her younger sisters. She studied general studies at the university with the hopes of becoming an elementary school teacher. She had a heart for adventure and loved her pet, Murphy. The police chases leads in DNA. Once the bodies of Chapin, Mogan, Kernodle, and Goncalves were discovered in their off-campus house, the police launched a full investigation. It took them thousands of trips and hundreds of interviews before they could finally make an arrest. The police were initially unable to identify a suspect. At first, suspicion was cast on the 2 surviving roommates, who were unharmed. One of them had called 911 at 11:58 to report an unconscious person. One of the surviving roommates also said she opened her door for the 3rd time when she heard whimpering from the other room. She saw a figure in black clothing and described it as male, 5 feet 10 or taller, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past her and out the back sliding glass door, but he was wearing a mask, and she could not identify his face. When the case was announced, many online users cast suspicion on the 2 roommates who survived, the local food truck driver who spoke to some of the victims the night before, and even one school professor, but the police cleared them all of suspicion. The police collected 103 pieces of evidence, took about 4,000 photographs, and conducted multiple 3D scans of the residence, but they did not have a solid lead. But once the police found DNA on the crime scene, they were able to arrest Brian Kohberger. Brian Kohberger is arrested on December 30th, 2022. Brian Kohberger, a 28-year-old PhD candidate studying criminology at Washington State University, was arrested for the quadruple homicide. Investigators found DNA on the crime scene and matched it to the genetic information of his father, who was submitted to a genealogy website. When investigating Kohberger, they realized that his phone was turned off or in airplane mode at 2:47 a.m. The location placed him exiting Washington State University, but it didn't come back on until 4:48 a.m. They finally got a solid break when witnesses reported seeing a white sedan in the area of the murder scene from 3:29 a.m. until 4:20 a.m. This matched the description of Kohberger's Hyundai Elantra. The vehicle drove by the house 3 times before leaving the road. Then, by 4:04 a.m., it returned and parked in front of the house. By 4:20, the car sped out of the street. It was found back on the Washington State campus at 5:25 a.m. It was discovered that Kohberger's car was found near the victims' houses multiple times. His phone pinged his location near the off-campus house at least 10 times before the murder. So, was he stalking the victims? And if yes, why? The police asked the public in November to be on the lookout for a white Hyundai Elantra. And by December, Kohberger was tracked to Pennsylvania. He was driving with his father, and they reportedly discussed the horrifying incident. It was also found that he had got a new license plate 5 days after the murder. The DNA evidence solidified the position of Kohberger as the suspect. Although the murder weapon was not found, the police found a knife and gun when searching Kohberger's car and family home. As a criminology student, even one of his professors had called him one of the brightest students they ever had. Kohberger had an interest in understanding human nature and seeing what made people tick. Had he finally decided to put his theories into practice, the police could not figure out his motive and connection to the victims. He had reportedly sent one of the victims messages on Instagram several times, but she never responded. Old posts he made as a teenager also resurfaced, with him saying he felt a lack of remorse and emotions. He posted, "As I hug my family, I look into their faces and I see nothing. It's like I'm looking at a video game, but less. Nothing I do is enjoyable. I am blank. I have no opinion. I have no emotion. I have nothing." He had also been fired from his teaching assistant job weeks before the gruesome murders due to his conduct with women. Several female students said they felt uncomfortable around him, and one accused him of following her to her car. What we know about the court proceedings: Brian Kohberger has been indicted at the Idaho court, but a gag order prevents the public from knowing too much. He was indicted on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. The indictment says he willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, killed and murdered them. He also declined to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty to the murder charges. He also offered an alibi, with his defense attorneys claiming that he went for a drive from November 12th to November 13th, and he is not claiming to be in any specific location, but there is no one to corroborate this alibi. The story is not over yet. Although Kohberger's guilt has not been proven in court, there seems to be no doubt in the minds of the victims' families, the prosecution, and even the public that he committed the murder. As he awaits trial, the house where the murders occurred was donated to the University of Idaho, and the school plans to demolish it. The university president plans to remove efforts to sensationalize the crime scene and remove the reminder of the tragedy. Kohberger had waived his right to a speedy trial, potentially creating a years-long delay. With the sluggish justice system, there's no telling when the case would be over or what the outcome would be. The investigation into the Moscow murders has been criticized for its loopholes, as there are still a lot of questions that linger. Why would Kohberger kill these 4 students? There seems to be no motive at all. Also, why did the killer spare the other 2 roommates? Could there be something fishy that investigators don't know about yet? Due to this, the police have left their tip lines open and are focusing on gathering evidence to put the matter to rest. But before this happens, the victims' families and the country will wait with bated breath. Let us know what you think in the comments below.